Well, Lodz live here again. And it seems like a little thing, but it's... When he tells us the story.
My name is Basia Jesin. My maiden name was Slavin. I was born in a shtetl called Dunilowicz. It was in Poland in the 15th of May 1930. And I know my mother used to say that I was born in Vilna because she went there to the special hospital. Our shtetl was a small shtetl. There were about 2,000 inhabitants. Half of them were Jewish and half of them were Gentiles. The Jews usually they associated between themselves together. I remember having mostly Jewish playmates, and the shtetl was very picturesque. It had 2 lakes and then a river, and there was a lot of activity going on the river. We used to do a lot of things there. We used to bring to wash the dishes there, and to wash the clothes we used to bring to rinse in the river. We didn't have any running water in the houses. Electricity just came, I think, there was still electricity, but just for light. And the rest, we didn't have running water in the house. For drinking water, we used to go, there was a well in the middle of town, and we used to carry the water. We had a big wooden barrel for drinking water and another barrel for other kind of water that we used to carry from the river, and we used to wash the sinks with that water. And there was a Jewish school. I remember going to the Jewish school since I think I was about 6 years old. I heard before was also a Hebrew school, but I don't remember. I think it closed down. When I was there, it was just, I remember it was a Jewish school and a Polish school, because the shtetl was in Poland. It belonged to Poland till 1939. And we had Jewish teachers. There was a choir. There was a nice Jewish community. Everybody sort of worried for the next one. We had Gemilas Chesed, a community that gave Gemilas Chasadim for the poor people when they needed money for special occasions and they didn't have any. We used to try to take care of people that didn't have too much to eat. We used to invite, used to go to, there were 3 synagogues, and there was one rabbi in the shtetl. My family consisted of, had a mother, a father, a brother, and my mother's parents used to live together with us in the house. And the grandfather belonged to the synagogue, and then my father, we belonged to the same synagogue. And on Shabbos, of course, we were observant.
What kind of work did your father do?
My mother had a store, and then when she got married, when my father came from a nearby shtetl, which was Dokshitz, about 40 kilometers away, he was also working in the store. It was sort of a general store. You could buy everything there, from nails and food and paints, and it was for everything.
Who bought in that store?
Huh? Who bought? A lot of farmers from outside, from all around, and Jewish people, all the inhabitants from the little shtetl. Of course, there were many stores like that, because Jewish people, either they were like shoemakers or dressmakers, or if not, everybody opened a little store, and that's the way they tried to make a living. It was not so easy.
I think you mentioned your father also did something else too.
My father also, he was educated in Hebrew, and he used to read the Torah on Shabbos in the synagogue. But of course, that's not a paid job. He just did it. And
how old was your brother? Was he younger?
My brother is a year younger, a year and 2 months is younger than I am.
What was the name of your school?
It was just a Yiddish shul.
Mm-hmm.
a Jewish school. Before we had in an old building, and then it was built a new school, also a Yiddish school. And our shtetl had a mill, and the mill was going, and we had a dam in the river, and the water used to power the mill, used to make flour. And they also had where they used to make like a dairy, where they used to make butter and milk, and I guess that's the most two industries that I remember being in town.
You learned Polish in the Yiddish school?
Yes, we learned Polish, and we learned Hebrew, and we learned arithmetic, and
Was it a big school?
Yiddish, huh?
Was it a big school?
Well, it was, we had about, it was all the way to high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 8 classes, I think. Of course, I was small, I don't remember too much, but I remember having nice teachers.
And the girls and boys, they were together
Yes,
in
we
the
were
class?
together in the shul, yeah.
What did your house look like?
Our house was consisted, one part was where we were living, and one part was the store. And where we were living, that was a kitchen, and a dining room, a living room, and one bedroom. And I remember sleeping a lot with my grandparents behind the stove that used to keep warm. We used to keep warm, it was like a stove with wood. And behind the stove were 2 beds for my grandfather and grandmother, and I used to sleep with them, because when my parents got married, they built another house like in the yard. But I guess we were afraid to go early to bed and stay there. So we chose most of the time to sleep in this house, because my parents were not ready to go to bed when we had to go to bed.
So your grandparents kept you
My
company?
grandparents, and when we were bigger and we went to school, my grandmother used to get up and make us breakfast, remember, and make us lunch and send us off to school, because my mother was busy in the store and my father also, so they didn't have too much time.
It was like having another set of parents.
That's right, yeah. Another said more to the grandparents than to my mother, because we knew that she was busy. Whatever we had to do, we always came to them.
And who did you play with in those days?
Well, we had like the children around. There were about 1,000 Jewish people in the shtetl.
You were talking about some games you used to play.
That's right. We never had special toys that we had to buy. We had to think about our own games. So I remember the boys used to make from pieces of wood something like a little thing that we used to put like with a bat, and then it used to run and catch something a little bit like baseball. But all the toys they made by themselves.
What did they call that?
They called it a zurke. Spielzurke. And also the girls used to play, we used to call it zeichen. We used to get special bones from a ship. We used to go to the katzev, to the butcher. And he used to give us from the ship special bones. We used to collect 5 of them and play like a little bit like, I don't
jacks.
know. That's right, like jacks. Only they had special shapes. When you turned over one, and it had, we called it a hand, it was better. If you turned over on the other side, it was not as good. But we used to play these games with the children. I remember just having one toy that my mother brought me from the big, from Vilna, which was like an oven where we could cook with a couple utensils, and that was already a big thing. All my girlfriends came to play with me, because
You were the only one that had such a toy.
Something. I don't remember having dolls. Maybe I had one, but nothing that I can remember.
Did you
Not too
have
many
Gentile
things.
friends?
I especially, no, we didn't have. We had, all my neighbors were mostly Jewish neighbors. There were a few Gentiles. We used to be afraid sometimes of the Gentiles, because when it used to come holidays, like religious holidays, some people used to drink and after come and break windows and shout like Żydzi do Palestiny in Polish, which meant you Jews, you go to Palestine. So we kept ourselves.
So you were afraid of them sometimes?
Yes, we were afraid. And since I was small, maybe the people that went to the Polish schools, they had more, more friends that are Polish. But I especially didn't. Mostly my friends were Jewish from classmates.
Did Polish people come to buy in your mother's store?
Yes, yes. They came. My mother was born on a farm also, and they used to live there a long time. So she had a lot of people that she knew. She was born in a place called Slabeda, which was about 15 kilometers from our town. And they used to come and buy every Tuesday. There was like a market in the town, and they used to come and bring to sell their wares, like whatever they had, butter and eggs and milk and berries and flax, and from the crops like oats and barley.
Well, where did your
And
parents
then
get the goods that they sold in the store?
They used to bring it from Vilna. I think they used to send them. They used to order from the bigger town. And there also was like a wholesale store in Dunilowicz that they used to sell flour and all kinds of other things by the bag, and sugar, and salt. We used to buy from them.
Did you work in the store too?
No, I didn't work. The only thing I remember, my father used to send us to, there was a place we had to go by east, used to come in pound packages, and then they used to weigh it and sell for every, like whoever wanted 100 grams, 200 grams, so he used to send us to bring this. And I was usually very shy, and my father always used to tell me, you have to overcome, because shyness is a very bad thing in life. Because you're shy, you should make yourself to go and get it. I remember it like the day he used to say, and we used to do it.
Did you overcome your shyness?
Yes, we had to go, because he said, just because you're shy, you have to go and ask them and pay and bring.
What about on Jewish holidays?
Yeah,
Anything
and
special?
the Jewish holidays was very special. I remember special Passover. Passover, the whole house had to be cleaned and painted. Once a year we used to paint the house whitewashed. We whitewashed the walls, and all the children used to get new clothes. Even the poorest families tried to buy at least once a year for Passover. For the children, new shoes, new socks, a new coat. It was like, we used to love the holiday. Of course, we didn't have to work so hard. We were still children. But everything, all the utensils, everything was carried out of the house, and the Passover things brought in. And I remember all the beautiful things were left for Passover, and I used to wonder, just for 1 week, my mother used to have the nice samovar and the nice dishes, and right after Passover it went back in hiding, and back to the old things. But for Passover, everything we try to make beautiful. And it used to be just the family used to sit for the Seder. It used to be a melech and a malken and your own children. I never remember going to anybody to spend Passover or somebody coming to our house like sometimes the custom is now.
You were mentioning something about the floor that was different.
Yeah, the floor. We used to have, especially in the kitchen, we had sand. But for Pesach, it used to be swept clean and put yellow sand on top. It should be nice and fresh.
In the town, were there different political groups and different Jewish organizations?
Yeah, there were people like the Zionists also, and people that thought that we have to try and better ourselves in the place where we live. But I think I was a little bit too young for this, but I know that they were.
You remember the choir, though, I think.
Yeah, you remember we had a very nice choir with a director. And also, I was still too young to sing in the choir, but my mother used to belong to the choir after. And they were a very nice choir.
Before 1939, did you hear of Nazi treatment of Jews in Germany?
Well, the first thing that we heard before 1939, I didn't hear too much. But when in 1939, when the war broke out, I think that's when Stalin and Hitler made a pact to divide Poland. So our part became like the Russian came to our part. And then we had a family that they were running away from the German side. And we had a family of 4, like they were refugees. They stayed in our house for a while, and they told us of all already.
What did they tell you?
Growing guns, that they like they schlagen die, no,
They were
hitting them and breaking windows and taking away the stores and everything.
in Poland.
In Poland, yeah, already. So they were running away.
Did this make your family think of leaving Poland?
Well, we were now, Russia was now, the Soviets were on our part. So we thought so far we were safe from the Germans anyway. We had plenty of problems with the Soviets also, because if somebody, like my father had a store, so he was considered being rich. So they put lots of taxes on him, and we were afraid that they were going to send us to Siberia.
They sent some people to
Siberia. Oh, yes, they sent a few families to Siberia. They thought that they were rich. And so we were afraid in that way. And also, in order not to appear like so rich and so religious, my father, so even if he was a religious man, he tried to tell us on Pesach, maybe you should eat bread to show them that we are not so religious, because otherwise, if they'll think we are rich and religious, they might send us to Siberia.
Is that who they sent to Siberia?
Yeah, to Siberia. To send the families.
So how did the Russians come in? Like, do you remember how?
Yes, they came in like in September, right after when we heard that the war broke out. They just came in with their army, with the tanks. It was no, not really no shootings or anything. They just marched in and occupied our town.
How did you feel when that happened? In September 39, they came in with tanks. Were you afraid?
Well, we were not really afraid already, because, I mean, there was not a front, there was no fighting near us. We know that they occupied the place. And we were relatively free. And
what changed with the Russians? Did something change when they came in?
When they came, they just, we saw they bought everything in sight. What they didn't buy, they took from the store. They bought out everything. For them, everything was cheap. They had the rubles, and I guess it was not so easy maybe to get there. So here, whatever, and they bought nightgowns, and they put on, the ladies, they were wearing them as dresses. And I mean, our store was gone very quickly. Everything, and then whatever it was still, they used to come and ask, maybe you still have, maybe you hid something there. They wanted everything, so our store was gone very quickly.
Did they treat the Jewish people the same as the Polish people?
Yeah, I think the Jewish people as Jews, we didn't have to be afraid. There were a lot of poor Jews that right away became and try to inform them who was rich and who was not so rich and who was poor and who is better for the communists and who is not so good for the communists.
What about religion with the communists?
Well, religion, they didn't think too much of religion, and but we still had, I guess, older people still went to shul, even though we were a little bit afraid, like my father was, but my grandfather, anyway, he went to shul. It didn't change much with him.
So did you still speak Polish?
Huh?
Did the town still speak Polish, or did you have to learn Russian?
Well, we spoke Polish, and we had to learn Russian, of course, which to learn Russian from Polish is not so bad, because it's a similar alphabet, not exactly the same, but it's similar. It wasn't too hard for me to learn Russian after a little while, I guess. We spoke a little bit.
If they took food, if they took things from the store, I guess you started to become poor.
Well, we started to become poor. My mother started to work, and my father went to work. He was, they didn't give him a good job, but he was a letter carrier, not in the little shtetl, but to the farms. So he had a bicycle, and he was taking the letter and carrying it maybe for 5 kilometers, for 7 kilometers to the farmers. And my mother got a job also in an office somewhere for a while. So I guess we still had something to eat. I mean, it's not that we didn't have nothing to eat. But of course, it was not like it was before. I guess before when we had the store, we made a better living. But my mother was too busy for us. I remember we used to tell her, how come some parents take their children and they go, like Saturdays, they go to the little, we had like where you could relax and sit under a tree and go bathing at the river. But sometimes they used to take us, not too often because they didn't have so much time. They had a one-day Shabbos, they had, I guess, to relax too.
And your grandparents didn't take you either?
No, my grandparents didn't do those things. They were, I guess, already in the 70s.
So how long did this last with the Russians?
This lasted till 1941. They came, I believe, in September 1939, till in June 1941, when the war started between Germany and Russia. When the Germans invaded.
Did you understand? Did you understand what was happening as a little girl?
Well, I understood that when I heard shooting. We understood that the Germans, we were very afraid, even though we didn't know the whole truth, what's going on exactly, but we were afraid. But yet, I guess we didn't run away because maybe because we had the grandparents and they were old, they wouldn't run. So, and some people remember that the Germans, after the First World War, they were not so bad. So some thought that maybe they are even not worse than the communists anyway. They didn't think that they are so bad. So we stayed, and because of the parents, we stayed, we didn't run away. There were a few people that were more like communists, that they ran away from the shtetl, and a few families. But most of the people, about 800, over 800 people stayed, around 900.
When the Germans came, most people
most
stayed.
Most Jewish people, I'm talking.
Yeah, most Jewish people stayed.
Yeah.
What about the Polish people when the Germans came? Were they afraid of them also?
No, I don't think the Polish people, they were not afraid. They didn't do nothing bad to them. The Polish people, they became police. They started to... They started with the Germans to plunder the Jews, to go and like break windows and scare them. And
do you remember the day when the Germans came in?
I remember that the war started in June. I think June 22nd. I think there was a song that started the war, and maybe a week after the Germans came already, a week or 10 days after. There was not too much shooting. They just went through. The Polish armies, I think, retreated before they were too powerful.
What did they look like?
They occupied
the German army when they came?
The Germans.
Mm-hmm.
Through our shtetl, we didn't see that much army. We had a little bit, and then a few came to manage this, like the shtetl to manage with the police. And after that, only I guess 2 or 5 Germans remained, and the rest became Polish people became a lot in the police, and they managed, and they started right away to get the Jewish possessions and whatever jewelry, fairs every time.
Was that their first task? Was that the first thing that they wanted to do?
Well, one of the first tasks, they gathered whatever they can, and then they started to instill fear in us. Like I think mostly also the police, the Polish people from themselves, they used to drink a little bit and then go and break windows. And
so you were afraid of the Polish people and afraid of the German
people. Yeah.
Did you have to, were there any special laws against Jews, or were there any curfews?
Right away, we had to wear a yellow, the Star of David in the back and in the front. They used to take us also to work in the fields. I remember I used to go pick potatoes. This year a little bit too, and also the next year during being in ghetto, we used to go out.
And your mother too?
My mother too, yeah, and my brother too.
Was it hard work?
Huh?
Was it hard
The
work?
work, it was work. We had to work. It was not. It was hard, but it was not very terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was at least on the fresh air, and I remember, and we stayed like that. I think the first fall in 1941, and then they designated one small street, and all the Jews had to go. They made a very high fence all around.
Before the ghetto, I think you mentioned something about one of the soldiers gave you a warning.
Oh,
What
yeah,
did he
that's
say
it.
to you?
We had we had two soldiers come by once, and they told us that we should be very sorry that we didn't go away because Hitler makes everybody like this kaput.
Mm.
And like the Jews, Juden kaput Hitler makes. We should have run away. They were sometimes better than the Gentiles. The Gentiles once, they knocked on our door, and my mother went to open the door because the men right away used to hide, like my father. So one he gave her with something over the head, and she was bleeding. She had a lot of stitches. We had a Jewish doctor. He came after and put stitches in her head.
Who was it that did this?
That's from the people like that were almost neighbors before.
Was this like a police?
It was one from the police, and then there was just people that were with the police.
And once they were your neighbors, and now they were...
And now they were...
And why did the men hide?
Because they were afraid that to the men they used to do worse things, we thought anyway. One time they gathered a bunch of young men, a lot of people, and it was already cold, and they told them to get wet in the river, and then to lie in the sand like a snake, and then they used to beat them. My father was there too. They beat him up. He was black and blue for a long time.
He came back and he was in bad shape.
He was in bad shape. After this lasted maybe half an hour, I know, they beat him up, and they beat all the young people, whatever they gathered, about 30 people. They beat them all up, and when he came back, he was black and blue for a long time.
That must have made quite an impression on you, being such a young
terrible.
kid.
The fear, we were in fear. The minute they arrived, we were in fear all the time. It was a terrible thing.
How long was that they were there?
That was, the Germans came in 41, I believe in June, end of June or beginning of July. And then in the end of this year, they made the ghetto. We had to take whatever we could, I guess in a hurry, and go to that place in the ghetto, which was one street for all the Jewish families with a big fence that we couldn't go out of there.
What did you take with you?
Huh?
What did you take?
We took whatever we could, like our possessions, clothes, whatever food we had, and some furniture, not all of them. Some furniture we took, and I remember that we had, they gave us a house in the ghetto that had a little garden. So the next spring we put, like we used to cut a potato in 5 pieces or 6, and we put in potatoes. So after we had at least our own potatoes. It was very hard in the ghetto with food. So when we used to go to work, we took something with us, some of our possessions also, and we used to change with the farmers. They used to bring sometimes milk, sometimes butter, and I used to put a big coat and then put in my sleeve like a liter of milk or some other things. And
well, were you allowed to go out of the ghetto? You were allowed to go out of the
work,
ghetto?
Yeah, they took us out to work.
Who organized all this? Who told you what to do?
I think they made also, in the ghetto was a kehillah from the Jewish kehillah.
An
also,
organization.
And they used to tell them, for instance, that they want 50 people to work here or 50 people to work there, and they used to designate. And then we had a guard that used to take us out of the ghetto, sort of.
Would you call
bring us
that
back.
Kehila, was that the Judenrat?
The Judenrat, I think, yeah.
And who was the Judenrat?
It was chosen from the people, from the Jewish people.
Did people want to be chosen to be Judenrat, as far as you remember?
I don't remember how exactly that was, but I know that some people were in the Judenrat, and they also came in the ghetto to tell them that we have to give everything we have if we still have watches or rings or
Were
whatever.
people angry at Were people angry at the Judenrat?
Well, sometimes they were angry. They thought that why do they tell me and maybe not somebody else? You know, there was always like that. That we thought that maybe they tell us more than somebody else, or ever their families. There was always a little bit like jealousy that we thought they come to one family more than another. But I guess in the end, everybody had to give. We had to give everything we had.
You were in one street in the ghetto.
We
It
were
was
in
one street.
Yeah.
How did so many people fit into one street?
Well, it was a few families in the bigger houses, was a few families together. Well, 800 people in one street, not a big. We had to manage.
And who was in your house?
In my house before we had a family of 4, but then we remained, I guess it was very small house, so they got somewhere else a place, and then we remained by ourselves. We were like 6 people, my parents, my brother, and my mother's parents. And I remember when we used to bring some food, my mother used to divide it in 6 parts, and whoever chose butter, and somebody chose jam, what was a little bit. We used to make jam from something from the beets, like white beets. We used to cook and make all kinds of things.
So you were able to grow something in the garden?
In the garden, yes, that year we still grow something in the garden.
Did you have any money left? Did you have any money or belongings?
I don't remember too much about money, but we still had some, I guess, clothes from before.
Sounds like you were hungry then.
We were all the time hungry. With the rations, and I remember that my grandmother always gave her ration, like to the grandfather, her part. She always gave it. She says, I don't need for the grandfather.
And you noticed that?
I noticed it, yeah.
Did your neighbors or any Polish people ever try to help anybody in the ghetto?
Well, the reason I suppose that we got some food was from some Polish people when we went out to work. That's the only way. But I suppose there were some Polish people that helped about food in the ghetto. And I don't know about anything else. I know a lot of the things that the other way.
Did anybody try to run away from the ghetto?
In our ghetto, they used to, every once in a while, they used to tell everybody to come, and there was near the church, there was a big place, and they used to come and count everybody. And they used to say, if one guy would not be there, they're going to shoot the whole family. That you better not run away. They tried to instill so much fear that everybody was afraid. And if one family will not be there, they will shoot the rest of them. And when they started to killing off the small towns like ours, I guess in the summer of 42, we heard that they liquidated one ghetto, another ghetto in one ghetto in Charkowszczyzna. It was a small shtetl. And there was a policeman, a good man, and he tipped off.
A Polish?
A Polish, yeah, police. They tipped off the Jewish people that the Germans are going, come, and they're going to liquidate the ghetto. And it so happened that night maybe half of the ghetto went out.
People escaped?
In the forest, in the wood, to the farmers. So what did we hear after that? The farmers themselves, they caught them, and they killed them with axes, or they brought them to the German authorities. And in the end, there was not that much people left.
So they didn't have even where to escape?
They didn't have where to escape too much. Especially my parents were old, and there were a lot of small children also that you couldn't escape with the babies. So people were afraid. They thought, they still were hoping maybe something will happen, that they will not do it to us. They were hoping, like against hope, that something will turn out better. And about escaping, they say, how can I leave my aging parent just like that and run away? They couldn't do it, and the same thing, they couldn't do it with the small children. Of course, now that we knew what was the end.
You knew the end?
No, now that we know what happened, I guess it didn't help nothing anyway, but at that time, they just couldn't do it. They were afraid. It was very hard. I remember when they already, before they liquidated the ghetto, they shot a few people that they got one that brought in some food, they shot him. They shot a few people also. They instilled fear right away. The people were very afraid in the ghetto.
Did your parents tell you to stay in the house, or were you able to go and visit with other people, other children?
In the ghetto we could go free in the ghetto wherever we wanted to. I mean, we could do that.
But you saw some of these. You saw
but
some of these things.
Everything happened outside the ghetto. The shootings, like when they spotted some people bringing in some food or going through a board in the ghetto, they shot quite a few people.
Did you see any of that? Did you?
No,
see?
I didn't see. I just heard. Yeah.
Did you have any radios to know what was going on?
Not that I remember. Not radios that could hear something from the country. I don't remember listening to radio.
Did anybody come into the ghetto who told you about camps or anything else?
About camps, we didn't. We used to hear by word of mouth that not so much about camp yet, but we heard that that they shot in Dokshit. They shot first the children. They gathered the children and they shot the children, so to break the spirit of the parents. After, when the parents remained, they had no will to live anyway. Mm-hmm. So we heard about that because some escapees used to come in. We had a few escapees that used to come in our ghetto. But even then, we couldn't even keep them because of this counting all the time. There was a bigger town, Glomboki, which all the escapees went to that town because there they didn't count so much. And there was like whoever remained, they used to go to that ghetto. So we had a few escapees that came from other ghettos that had relatives in Dunilowicz, in our shtetl, but they were afraid to keep them, so they also had to go there. And we heard all kinds of stories from those people that were escaping, what they did.
Did somebody go to look in the houses to see if there were escapees there?
No, they just were counting.
Counting.
Everybody counting. They were counting quite often the people.
So it was.
And then I remember the day when the ghetto was. When they came to liquidate the ghetto, that was a Saturday morning in November, in 1942. It was already cold hour, like the lakes were frozen already, and the ghetto was surrounded.
Before that, I remember you mentioned once that you were looking at the fence, and you had some very.
At that time,
What were you thinking then?
Yeah, that was at that time when the ghetto was surrounded, and our house was near the fence, and on the other fence were living already Gentiles, and I was thinking to myself, my God, now I'm going to be killed maybe very soon, and if I would just could fly over the other side of the fence, I wouldn't have to be afraid and I wouldn't have to be killed. And just because I'm Jewish and I'm in the ghetto, I'm going to be killed. So. And that was the day when they started killing.
Who surrounded the ghetto?
The German army, I guess, or police. They brought a lot of people with machine guns, a lot of soldiers. And we didn't wait too long because everybody had to go to that place near the church again. They said they're going to count and they're going to take to people to work in camps to work, but we knew already better that
you knew
it's not going to be because we saw all this all the army and stuff, all the people, and we knew that's the end. So we had built a shelter. Like I told you, we had some ground, like a garden. We also had a shed for wood. So my father was saying that we have to do something because it will come a day when they will liquidate the ghetto, and then if we'll have something, maybe there is a chance that we might escape. But if we don't have nothing, for sure we're not going to escape. So we dug a hole about maybe 1.5 meters by like 1.5 yards by a yard for us just to sit down, and we took all the sand out, and then we made like a floor from boards and put earth on top. And I remember we stuck for an opening, we stuck a drawer in. Just we took out a drawer, we stuck it in so we can get in, and we closed this up with a board and put some wood on top. So when it came this Saturday, my mother said, I'm going to take some suhares. You know, that suhares, we always had suhares because there was, in case we shouldn't go hungry, we always had dry bread, just ready in a bag in case we need to run. So I remember my mother took the suhares and water, and my grandparents didn't want to go. They said, you Kinder, you go. We are too old. We cannot escape anyway. We can't escape nowhere, but you're young, you try. So my mother had to leave the parents in the house. And my father, and we went in that hall, and she brought in whatever, some clothes we had.
Was it scary to be in that hole? Was it scary for you?
It was scary, just in case they find us. That was the fear. So, and we were sitting, we went in that hole, and we didn't get out anymore. And we didn't know what happened to my grandparents, but we heard after that people, they saw them dead like everybody else. I don't think they even went, maybe they shot them in the house. And we went.
You don't know if they shot them in the house?
I don't know whether they were shot in the house or on the place there. But the farmers after told them that they saw them dead also. And the ones that had to take all the corpses to the main burial place, like they all. So when we went in that hall, we were sitting there like that. It was from Saturday afternoon to Sunday, Monday. We heard in that time, we heard a lot of yelling because there were some more shelters not far from us, and they discovered them, and they were shooting and yelling. It was awful. And we were sitting there Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I think Tuesday or Wednesday. I think we went out. Wednesday night we went out because we saw the ghetto was. They were burning also the ghetto.
How
a lot
could
of
you
houses
sit for
burned
3
up.
days?
Huh?
How could you sit for 3 days?
We were just sitting. We took something for us just to make there too.
You had a chamber
Yeah,
pot
yeah.
there. You couldn't stand. Could you stand
no,
up?
we couldn't. My mother went out. My father went out just to have a look at night. They saw the ghetto was burning. A lot. They burned after the ghetto, and we thought once this is finished, and they'll come to our shed, and they start taking away the wood, they'll discover us that we can't sit anymore. We have to go. So we decided that since my father will go first, and I am the oldest, I'll go after, my brother after me, and then my mother. So we started out like from that fence that we had, and we knew the shtetl, very well. We knew the river. We were going to go to the river, and then under the bridge, and go to the outskirts of town. And we told ourselves that whatever will happen, whether they'll catch anybody or what, we shouldn't wait for one another. We should, if something will happen, we should just run. And on that place, we knew, like on the outskirts, we'll wait for each other about half an hour to see if we can manage to come together. So when we went out, there was a very windy night, and we saw on the bridge was a policeman with a big coat with the color like that. And we waited until he'll go away. And when he go away, we went under the bridge, like my father first and me and my brother and my mother. And then after that bridge, there was a path around the river that we could go to this place where we were telling each other. And somehow, I guess, we were nervous. We couldn't find that path, so we went a little bit to the right. And then there was a lady living there, and a dog started barking, and the lady came out, and my mother tried to tell her, she knew her, she tried to tell her, please be quiet. And she started, Policja, Żydzi uciekają, which meant, police, come here, the Jews are escaping.
She wanted to turn you in.
Yeah, she wanted to turn us in. And when we heard that, we got so scared, we started running. We didn't know where we were running, but thank God we found that path, and we ran away. And we all came to that place where we said that we should meet. We all came together after, I guess, after 10, 15 minutes, we were all there, separately, but we came there together. So from there, we were sitting and trying to think, what should we do next?
You had only planned up to that point?
Well, we didn't know. We had planned up to that point, and then we decided, what are we going to do next? So we decided, my mother knew there like a family that used to buy in the store, I mean, good people. So we decided we'll go to them first, because it's already, the night was starting getting light soon, and we couldn't stay there longer.
What month was that?
That was in November.
Were you dressed with a coat?
Yeah, we had coats, we had the shoes, whatever we could have. So we came to that farmer. And
How
he
far
let
did
us
you have
in.
to walk?
That was about, I guess it was about 4 kilometers from our place, for the Stadt. And he fed us, and he gave us a place in his barn, in the hay, in the straw. And from him we knew who escaped, and
he knew what had happened in the town?
Yeah, he knew what happened already. He told us.
How did he know?
Well, he knew they were there.
The neighbors knew.
The neighbors knew. A lot of people had to go take the corpses and take away, and they knew what had happened. And people were running across the lake.
What did he say?
He told us who ran through and who they got, like, and somebody were injured, and a father had to leave a injured child there because he couldn't make it, and he had to run, otherwise he would be there too. And a few families like that. And one lady told us ran away with the injured child, and he gave us names. We know already. We knew a little bit who escaped. So he kept us this day, and he said it's too close to the garrison here, to the Germans. You can't stay here. So we asked him the road how to go, like.
Was he willing to take you in? When you knocked on the door, how did he feel about that?
He was nice. He gave us food, but he couldn't keep us. It was too close to the town anyway. So when he just gave us food and shelter for the day, and he told us the minute it gets dark, you have to go. So we asked him, my mother asked, how to go to a few farmers, because we had to ask for a few anyway, otherwise they would think that we went to this and this farmer, and everybody was afraid. We wanted to make sure that he shouldn't really know where we want to go, just how to go.
You wanted to confuse him.
To confuse him, yeah.
To say, ask for a few, so he wouldn't know where.
Yeah. So he told us a little bit, and we went the whole night. We were walking. We thought we walked far, but in the end we walked maybe 6 kilometers on the other side of town. So we came to another farmer that my parents knew also, and it's the same story. He took us in, and he kept us in. The farmers used to have bathhouses. Like there was no water in the houses, but they used to have special, separate little houses where they they kept stones, and they used to heat the stones and then bring water and make steam and wash themselves. So he said, you can go and get warm in this because they just use the baths. It's a warm place, and they brought us food. And again, we stayed the day, and he said, you have to go because it's too close here to the town. So when night came, we gathered ourselves and we went farther, another, I guess, 5 kilometers. And we intended to go to another farmer, but we knocked on the door of the Anishkevich family, and the lady, there was a lady, a widow with 2 daughters living there. And she opened the door, and of course my mother knew them too, because my mother was born in that area, and she lived there a long time. So they let us in. She let us in. They had pity on us. She was a very good-hearted lady. And they were poor themselves, but they said, it's so cold with 2 kids. How are you? Where are you going to go?
Before we go into I want to know, you know, you were still young and your brother was still young, and your parents' nerves must have been on edge. Was there any crying? Was there any...
Crying? No, we were so stoned. There was no crying. We just had so much just to go away. And
you were able to
the
walk
will to
so
survive was so
strong,
so strong
that you just kept going.
There was no crying, no sickness, nothing. It's just, we knew we have to go to get away from the town, so we could maybe try and hope to stay somewhere. So we came to this lady, and even though she was poor, she said she let us in, and she made a place in the barn for us in the straw, and we stayed there, and she used to bring us food.
Who lived in her house?
In her house, she lived there with 2 daughters.
How old were the daughters?
The daughters were, the oldest was 18, and the other one was 15, about 14 and a half, 15. She had more children, but some were married. Most of them were married, and they were out of the house. So she gave us food, and we stayed a couple days in the barn, but it started getting colder. It was already the end of November, and in Poland it's very cold in that time, and snow. So we tried to talk her into that we'll make a shelter in her house, like behind the ovens, the Russian ovens, like she had a bedroom there that will open the boards, and we'll make a shelter, and we'll stay there in case when somebody comes. Yeah. So.
Do you mean that they were going to make a hiding place under the floor?
That's what we wanted, to make a hiding place under the floor, because it was impossible to stay in the barn. It was too cold. And if we would be in the house, then we could, on the farm, you see, there was no cars there. It was just like horses and carriages. So we could look in the windows, and we could see the horse from maybe a kilometer away, or 2 or 3 kilometers. And when we see that, we have an ample time to get into that shelter.
Did she want to do this? Did she agree? Did her children?
Well, she had so much pity on us that they agreed to do it. And then we started building that shelter again whenever we could, to take out the sand and make a hole. And just we left the boards like open, that we can open them up and go in. And whenever she used to get company, or we used to see somebody coming, we used to run in there. And especially at night, we used to come out and sleep on the floor.
It must have been a very big hole to let 4 people sit under
that's
the
just
floor.
it, but that's only like whenever she used to have company. Otherwise, we could get up and stay like in the house.
Was it hard to keep still when you were under the floor?
Yes, it was hard. And I remember one time we had diarrhea. It was terrible.
Diarrhea under the floor.
Yeah.
And you had
And we had
to...
to stay there, yeah. And she had people a couple times, like they stayed with her a couple days. Her married daughter came for the holidays, for Christmas.
And she didn't
And
tell
we had
her
to-
older
no,
daughter?
No, she didn't want
She
to tell
didn't trust
anybody.
her older daughter?
No, but it's not that she didn't trust, she just didn't want to take a chance.
Do you think any of the
Nobody knew.
neighbors knew that you were there?
Well, we were there, she didn't have any men. My father used to go and help her feed at night when it was dark and help her feed the cattle. Like she had not too much cattle, but she had a cow and she had a horse and she had a couple of pigs. So I used to help feed and it happened that once like somebody was coming visitor, we didn't notice. I mean, they started getting suspicious. Also, they were also very poor and they used to take in like knitting. And we learned how to knit also, and we used to knit like sweaters and skirts. And for knitting a sweater, they used to take, it was always, everything was going on grain. A pud, it used to be 16 kilograms. So 2 puds, which was 32 kilograms of grain, was the price of knitting a sweater or a skirt. And we used to sit and knit, my brother and me and my mother, and my brother learned to knit too. And this way we helped them a little bit. It was very hard for them. First of all, they were poor, and second of all, to make bread, it was very hard because some mills were already burned down, like partisans started to burn down. So they had to do it all by hand, like between 2 stones, just to make the flour. And it was hard. It was a hard life there. And we were always in fear of the neighbors to see, and they too. And one time, like the Germans were not too far away, in about 3 kilometers. And the daughters, the younger one special, she was so scared. She told her mother, "They're going to shoot us. You still keep them. Why don't you let them go?" And we were terrified. But she said, "No. How can we let them go now? Where would they go now in the winter time?" So and she kept us on. She was
How much time do we need for the pictures?
Well, I would say 10 minutes at the very least, just because it's more real time than it is tape time.
What was the name of the lady where you were hiding?
Yeah. Her name was Celina Anishkevich.
How would you spell that?
Anishkevich, A-N, in English would be A-N-I-S-H-K-E-W-I-C-Z. Anishkevich.
And her
Celina.
children?
And her daughter was Vanda, and the other one was Bolesia. Boleslava, like Bolesia in short. And she had another son, Yuzik. He was the only one that he was married, but he knew about us. He used to come home, and we didn't have to hide when he came. He was. My mother remembers him now too. That he always put another piece of bread to my younger brother. Like she always remembers. Even now, he was at pity on him because we were hungry there too. They didn't want to give us, but they didn't have too much for themselves.
They had more than you had. They had more than you?
Well,
The
our
family?
food? No, we ate together, but there was not that much to eat, I guess. So we were always on the hungry side.
Were you able to give them anything of your belongings?
We didn't have nothing to give. We just barely had our clothes when we escaped. We had only one time we had the priest in our shtetl Dunilowicz in our town. He was a good friend of my parents. So before the ghetto was, they hid there a couple puds of grain. Like I told you, grain was a big thing then. Wheat or rye, and then a sewing machine, and tablecloths and a bedspread, a few belongings they put in his place. Just for a time we thought maybe sometime we will have nothing, maybe we could come and he would give us back. So one time we told this family that that's what we have in the priest's house. And I don't know, it's probably dangerous to go there. But the older daughter, she was a brave girl. She said she knows that the priest in Dunilowicz is a very good man, and she's going to go there. And one time we wrote a letter, and she went there, and he gave her everything he gave, so she brought everything, and it was, everybody was so happy. We had the grain for bread, and the sewing machine, and the other things that maybe, I don't think they sold it, but at least we had something for a little while. But she was not afraid to go there.
So you brought some benefit to the family. You brought some benefit to the family too.
A little bit. What we were needing, that's the only other thing that we helped them to earn a little bit of living. Otherwise,
did you hear what was going on with the war when you were in hiding there?
Yes, we heard. We heard this. All the farmers brought news. They had radios or newspapers. We heard that the Germans are starting to, that the second front opened like from Normandy, and after. We heard that, and we heard that the war, mind you, in 1942 we didn't hear too much. We heard the bad things, that around Leningrad he went so far, the Germans, and Russia was in bad shape. But after already that we heard that he was losing ground. But we were there with that family. We stayed there till the end of the winter. And when it started to getting warm, and more neighbors started to be suspicious, so they decided that it's time that we leave the place.
So were you in a panic?
Huh?
Were you in a panic when you heard you had to leave?
Well, we knew that when it will get warm, we'll have to leave. We can't stay there forever. So we were a little bit afraid, but we had to go. We had to go. So we went to the woods. It was not far from them anyway. It's not, just around the farmers. And we used to stay during the day. We used to stay in the woods, and we used to make a small fire and maybe cook a little soup or a potato. At night we used to go, me and my mother, the men used to stay, because for the men it was dangerous. For me and my mother, we used to go to beg the farmers for bread or potatoes or whatever they could give.
They didn't try to turn you in?
Well, we didn't go to just any farmer. We went to that my mother thought they were the good people. And she knew there were a lot of people since she lived there among them for quite a while. So we used to go, and I remember one farmer tried to give us bacon.
Bacon?
Yeah, and he used to tell us, take it, because bread, maybe everybody will give you, but bacon, not everybody will give you. But my mother said, please, we don't want, better give us more bread or give us a potato or something, because we were not going to eat the bacon.
Even though they were so hungry.
Yeah, but sometimes they used to give us a chicken. So a chicken, my father used to try to make a kosher shchita in the chicken, and we used to cook it. We made a pot out of a can, and on the fire we used to cook sometimes.
Weren't you afraid if you had a fire in the woods, somebody would see you?
Well, that's why during the day the fire was not visible too much, because it was a very thick brush. And during the day we could make a little fire, but never at night, because at night you see the fire very far away. Also, we built a little house, a shelter where we would sleep from the trunks of zin trees. We made a floor, and we slept there. We made a roof from the branches. And that's where we lived for this summer.
Did you find anybody else in the woods?
Yes, we gathered, and we were a company of about 11 or 12 people.
How did you find them?
Also, like the farmers, when we used to go back, and then another one used to come back, they used to tell them, oh, you know, we saw so-and-so there, I think he's around there. So we get there together, and we stay there together. Also that year, the partisans used to become more, the Germans got to be more afraid because the partisans used to go more freely and burn places. And
This is the Polish partisans. The Polish
no,
partisans?
there were a lot of Jewish partisans too. Yeah, a lot of
All
Jewish
together?
partisans all together. Yeah, there was no separate Polish or Jewish. The partisans were together. So also the farmers started to become more afraid because the partisans, if they heard that a family collaborates with the Germans, and they used to come and burn their place. So it was become a little bit that we could move around a little bit freer, especially at night. And we sometimes used to go already then, like the Germans didn't come out anymore to the countryside. They stayed in the rayons, like in the little towns. So we sometimes went like that summer, and we used to work in a field by somebody too.
Some farmers would hire you?
Yeah, would hire us, and this way we could earn a little bit. We used to help them.
The Germans
We used
weren't
to-
out? The Germans
The
weren't
Germans
there?
didn't go in the countryside. That was already in the 43, like the summer of 43. What the Germans used to do, they used to take off from like maybe a whole battalion from the front, and then make a blockade over the whole area to kill the partisans, because the partisans did a lot of damage. They used to go to the railroad stations to aufreißen, like you say.
Sabotage, to blow it up?
To blow up the railroad stations. And they did a lot of damage. That's what they did. They used to take out a whole battalion or what, and then come through the woods. And at that time, we had one of our shtetl, he used to be like, he used to deal in forestry, like it was. So he used to know very well the area. He used to come and take us during the night, all 14, 15, through very small roads, and take us behind the lines, like, where they went through already. And we used to, closer to the city, we built a shelter there too.
Who did he take? Did he take the partisans?
He took us.
Just you 13?
Yeah, he took us. They used to live also, they had a family that kept them. They were called Anishkevich. They kept three people from our shtetl. So he used to come and take us, and we built a shelter. They were closer to the town, about 5 kilometers. So we built a shelter there, and we masqueraded it in the woods. Masqueraded it, and just in a case like that, and we used it. We used it twice. We went all the people, and we stayed there. We stayed there 1 night and 2 days, and then when we heard that the blockade passed.
So you were in a
our
shelter,
place.
and it was camouflaged.
Camouflaged.
Nobody
yeah.
could see it.
Nobody could see it. No, we camouflaged it completely.
Did you hear Germans go by?
No, we didn't hear. We didn't hear. But when we came to that shelter, they already went from there. They were in our place where we used to sit. And then when we heard that they left already that place, that's when we got back to our old place. And when we came there, the family that kept them, it was the Anishkevich family, they used to bring us all food, the 15 people. But we were not there too long, about 2 or 3 days. But they used to feed us all. Also there was a family. But they kept the 3 people, they kept until the Russian army came, until the Germans left. They kept all the 3 people.
Which 3 people are you talking
The
about?
3 people from our shtetl also. There was a Mr. Goldman, and Zeitlin, and Spreerigen. It's an uncle with his nephew and another person. They kept these 3 people.
You were with older people all the time. You must have you must have matured very fast.
Well, we had to mature so quickly. There was no room for children. You had to be a grown-up. You had to go, and we used to walk through the forest barefoot, just like on a carpeted floor. I used to wonder how come my feet became so that it didn't bother us at all. We used to walk in the woods, and we used to also gather like berries and bring it to the farmers, who used to give us some food in exchange.
You used to be shy, so you
Huh?
learned not to be shy when you went to the farmers.
Yeah, of course, I always went with my mother, but and then the next one time when we came from a blockade like that, and we made a fire in our old place, and another farmer came and threw the fire out, and he said, "Come to my house, it's cold already." That was another farmer. His name was Krivenky, and he with his wife, already older people, also poor people, and they took us all in 13 and he gave us food. Yeah.
There were some wonderful people.
And they had 2 rooms themselves, and all the people were in these 2 rooms.
For how long did they stay?
We stayed for a couple of days, and then he kept most of the people until for longer, for the whole until we were liberated. I was on another farmer because in order it shouldn't be too many. I was knitting for another farmer. That year was already, like I said, the farmers were not afraid already. That was in the winter of 43-44, where the partisans roamed around. The farmers were not so afraid. So I was in a family, in a separate family. I was knitting for them, and I stayed there. And I had it like heaven because lots of good food to eat.
And you
I
stayed
wasn't
in
hungry
there all the
anymore.
time?
I stayed on my own, yeah.
You weren't?
Not with my parents. My parents used to stay there, or used to stay sometimes at another farm, yeah. Because together we were 4. It was always a little bit too many, maybe. We always thought maybe we're too many for one family, so we tried to separate, and they tried to go away, so there would be room for the others more. But they kept 2, and 2 is 4, and another 2 is 6, and if my parents were about 11 people, they kept in that small house.
And how did they feed all these people?
Well, the people at night, whatever they had, they gave, and some people, like we used to go out at night and get the food for us also.
And
Whoever could brought from another farmer, because they understood that it's very hard. How could one person, when they had very little themselves? And over there he had the 2 stones that made the flour. We used to make flour there ourselves, and everything. Such good people. So he came, and he gave us some. They're called lapches, shoes that you make from string, and they're very good to wear when it's dry weather and frost or snow. They're very good, but when it's wet, it's no good. So when it was cold when he came. So when he took us in, I'll never forget that.
how kind he was.
How kind he was.
Did
And
you-
2 poor people.
Poor people took
Poor
care of
That's
starving
right,
people.
That's right. There were a few, not too many, but there were a few good people. And then there were already partisans all around, so sometimes we used to go, and the partisans used to give us a head from a kettle or a tug or something.
So you
So
learned
we
to make
kept-
do with all.
Oh yeah, we learned to make do with a lot of things.
Were you ever bothered
was-
by animals in the
Huh?
woods? Were there animals?
I don't know, we did. We were more afraid about the
The people.
2-foot animals,
The
not the 4-foot animals. We weren't bothered. There were wolves sometimes. We used to hear them squeal, wolves and coyotes.
Did the 13 people get along, or was it, when you were
Well,
still in the forest?
Most of the time we got along. Maybe sometimes, I don't know, one cooked along or something, but that was our little thing. And we had all so many lice. It was terrible. We were full of them. And we had boils. And I don't know how we got out of them, no penicillin or nothing, but somehow everybody had boils and lice every day. We used to take them off from our underwear, and they used to come again.
Even when you were in the house?
Huh?
When you were in the
Especially
house?
when we were in the woods. Terrible, I don't know why. And we used to go to the bathhouses sometimes and make hot a bathhouse and put our clothes all on those hot stones and put them on again. And I remember going to these bathhouses, I used to think to myself, my God, whenever if God will give it, I will survive this ordeal. If I will have to live in a bath like this, I wouldn't mind, as long as I am not afraid that people will see me. As long as I will not be afraid to walk.
You were always afraid somebody would find you?
That's right, all the time. We were afraid somebody will see me and they will tell the Germans or the police, and they will come and kill us.
You had some close calls.
Huh?
You had some close calls.
Yes.
So who liberated you?
So in 1944, I think it was July 44, the Red Army, the Russians liberated us. We already heard that the other front was opened. We knew that the Germans, I mean, the end is coming. But we were very afraid that when the army will retreat and go back, that they'll get us maybe then. We were very afraid for that time. But it so happened we never saw the army where they retreated. They didn't retreat where we were anyway. Where we were just one day, the Russians just came. We saw they didn't come special to the we saw that we knew that Dunilowicz is already liberated and Vilna is liberated.
When did you first feel? When did you first feel that you were free?
Well, when we heard that the Germans are not there anymore and that the police ran away wherever. We were also afraid a lot of the police, they couldn't run away far, so they were now in the woods too. We had to be afraid of them also.
You're afraid of the Polish police?
Of the police that worked with the Germans.
They ran away to the woods?
They couldn't run away too far because the Russian army came quickly. So there were stories that a lot of them are in the woods. That's when we went back to the shtetl Dunilowicz. When a lady saw my mother come, she like a good Christian, she did, she made a cross, and she said, "Abo, is that Soshka?" They used to call her Soshka. Is that how you look? It's horrible. I can't recognize you because we were all so thin like toothpicks when we came out of
what
the
did you
hiding
see?
back to
What
the
did you see when you came there? When you came back?
Nothing we didn't find. Our shtetl was all burned. There were left just a couple houses, a few houses that belonged to Jewish people and others, but most of it was all burned. It was like nothing left.
Ruins.
It was ruins.
So where did
just
you
was
stay?
left was just left the cave where all the people were lying.
Just the grave?
The grave, yeah.
How did they receive
Even
you?
the old graveyard the stones were some were turned. How did they receive us? Well, we had like a lady that was working for us before, sometimes like washing clothes and like a maid part-time sometimes, and we gave to her a few pillows. And then when my mother went back, we didn't have nothing to ask her to give us back. She didn't want to give us back. She said, I don't understand why you didn't get killed. She was sorry to see us alive.
So did you stay?
It was very hard. We stayed in Dunilowicz for a while, and then one night we heard there was like gunfire. We got so scared. We ran in the middle of the night from that house to the priest. And from then, when I came back the next morning, I said, "Ma, I'm not staying in the town anymore, no matter what."
What was the gunfire?
Huh?
What
Apparently, the gunfire was between the Russian soldiers and between these police that were in the forest, and they come. But it was very close to the shtetl. It was near us, so we were afraid. I said, "No more. I'm not staying here. I'm going to the larger shtetl where the rayon is for Paiva." And I left my parents and my brother, and I went there because I couldn't stand any more fear. I just couldn't. I stayed there with a couple. They took me in, and I went to school there.
This
My
was
mother-
a couple that was in the forest with
Huh?
you.
Yeah, we were together in the forest together. They, her husband worked in that. It was there was the railroad station. Before it was a small town. Dunilowicz was bigger, but now Dunilowicz was nothing. So this became like the whole rayon town. It's like the main town because the railroad was there, and he had a job there, and they had a little place. They took me in because my mother had to stay in Dunilowicz because she worked there. I guess she couldn't leave. I don't know why. She said she had a job there, and my father. So they stayed there, and I stayed. It was 10 kilometers.
You went to school, and you hadn't been in school for a few years?
I haven't been in school for a few years, but I went
Was it a
back
Jewish
to school. No, it was a Russian school. There was not too many Jews left. There was nothing.
How did they
It was
treat
just
you?
a couple kids Jewish. Huh?
How did they treat you?
Well, they treat okay. They treat us the same as anybody else, not no better, no worse. We went to that school in, I remember, I think there I got in grade 6. It was quite hard. I remember they were learning there already algebra, chemistry. It was on a high standard.
You were with children who didn't go through what you went through.
Huh?
These are with
No,
children.
No, they didn't go through what I went. No.
So did you feel? Did you
Are we
feel
out of place?
You felt out of place.
A little bit out of place. I didn't have too much to do except was going to school and coming home.
I think your family went to a few places until you came to a DP camp. Is that right?
No, in that place after when it came the law that we could go away, so we wrote our names that we want to go away, and then when it came the time we left in
Who gave you
1945.
permission? Who gave you permission to leave?
The Russian government.
To leave Poland?
Yeah, because we were to go back because we were like from the west, Zapadnik as they called us.
Where were you going to go?
We had the right to go because we were before in Poland. We didn't want to go to Poland, but we knew if we come to Poland, a free country, we will get away somehow.
You went from Russia to Poland.
Yeah.
The part of Poland became Russia, and now you went to the Polish part.
Yeah, we went to the Polish part of Poland where the Germans were there and went away, so that was Poland. So we went to Poland. And from there, and before we went to Poland, we had to wait until our turn. So we slept, 4 of us people slept in one bed. We shared one room with another person, a small room, and we had to sleep 4 people in one bed.
Did you have to wait a long time?
It was about a month like that. And then in the end of 45, we left Russia. We came to Lodz, and there was Lodz was, I think, Yakuba 16, it was called, in the street, like where all the Jews gathered, like the refugees.
Who was taking care of, who was...
Well, there was already helping. I think there were American organizations helping a little bit. But when we came there, we had a cousin that was there before, and he came and took our suchares again. We still had suchares.
Was your crust?
That's right, the dry bread that we never went without. Wherever we went, the first thing was the suchares. And he took our belongings, and he took us to him. He had an extra room. We stayed there, and there a little bit I was going to Shomer HaTzayir, to the kibbutz, and we started looking for ways of getting away from here. And there used to be active already the old Zionist organizations. And we knew that we could go with, it's illegal, but everybody somehow went. They organized already. The organizations organized. And,
to go where?
To go to Germany.
You wanted to go to Germany?
Not to Germany. We wanted to go just from where we can get out of here.
Where did you want to go? Where did your family want to go?
My family had a lot of relatives in America.
I see.
So it was a dream that we should go there anyway. So in the spring of 46, we got out of Poland in a barge from Szczecin. We went like with a cargo ship, like a barge.
Was that legal?
No,
legal?
It wasn't
Not
legal. No, nothing was legal. And through the Oder to Berlin, which was normally takes maybe a day or 2, we went 7 days there with that barge until we got to Berlin. And we came into, somehow, I guess we didn't land there, but we somehow we were asking, we came to the American zone, and to the Schlachtensee, to the camp. That was the first camp, Schlachtensee. That was like...
what was it like to be in the DP camp?
I tell you, the memories of the DP camp, the first one was we were not hungry anymore. We had food. The Reichenhall, whatever it was, we had food and it tasted darn good, all the food, and we didn't have to be afraid. That was the two things. And nothing else mattered.
What was it like to be in Germany? Like, did you go out of the camp to
well, we could go out, but I had no interest to go. Some people, not too many, went to German schools, but I couldn't make myself to go to German schools. But we didn't stay. That was a transit camp. Like, we didn't stay there too long, about a month. From there, we went near Munich, like to the Funkasern, it was called. We stayed there also just, I guess, maybe a month or so, and from there we went to the camp Bad Reichenhall, and in Bad Reichenhall we stayed longer. We stayed about, that was in 46, we stayed there till 48, about 2 years, and in Bad Reichenhall I went
a long
to school.
time.
It's a long
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Was it very hard on the family?
Well, we had one room, actually half a room, because there was a big room, it was for two families. We were four and another couple. So I remember in the room there were two beds, a bed for the parents, two beds for the kids, and a little corner there was a hot plate where we cooked.
How did you spend the day?
I went to school there. I went to school, I learned him, I went to regular school, and then I went on every course I could get on. I remember I learned dressmaking, and I learned corset making, and bookkeeping, and English classes and Hebrew classes, regular school and separate. I just spent all my time in all those courses.
And your brother, he went and studied, I think, too.
My brother also went there, and then my brother went to Munich to study
dentistry?
It's not dentistry, dental technician.
In a German in a German school?
In a school. No, it was organized also from the, I guess, era from the international organizations. It was part of the DP camps. It was not a camp, but it was also a school. And he was in Munich. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe it was part there. I'm not sure, but I know that he learned there. At first, he also went to the Hebrew school. It was a Hebrew school in the camp. We learned Hebrew. And then he went to this school. And then in 1948, I got married.
How did you meet your husband?
Like, my husband comes also from Dokshis. He's from my father's town. I knew my husband. He was in Vorpayevo, in the same town where I used to go to school, like 10 kilometers from dunilowicz. But at that age, he was 10 years older. I didn't think about, I was then in 46, 16 years old, I didn't think. But after he came, he was also in Schlachtensee, and then this camp liquidated, and he had an uncle in our block where we lived, and that's the way I met him there. And we got married 3 months later, like in October.
So you had a wedding party?
We had a wedding in the block where there used to be the kitchen. I know my relatives from the state sent us $300, I remember, and my mother made the wedding. And I borrowed a dress to wear.
We're
like
going to see the picture later.
Yeah. This dress was going from bride to bride. Everybody who got married wore the dress. And then I guess from Bad Reichenhall they sent us, my husband's mother was also with us, but she passed away. We were trying to go to France. We had a cousin in France. We thought first that we could maybe do something in France, like to make a living. So, but didn't materialize nothing. And his mother, my husband's mother, died on the way. And after they changed us from one DP camp to the other, they liquidated Bad Reichenhall. We went to Attel. From Attel we went to Gabersee. From Gabersee we went to Fehrenwald.
Why so many changes?
I don't know. I guess people went away and they were liquidating.
They were
the
closing
DP camps closing. And in Fehrenwald we stayed until we went. My parents went in 1949. We had their cousins made affidavits for all four of us. But since I married in between, and the relatives already knew that I became pregnant, they were afraid that they'll have to help us maybe too much, so they didn't want to sign any more documents. So when my parents and my brother went to United States, and they heard that Canada is started to let in people, they came here. At first they came to Montreal, but they couldn't do nothing. Then they came to Toronto, and we have Lance people that one signed, had a factory, a dress factory. He signed that he'll give my husband a job. And another Lance lady had a house she owned. She signed that she'll give us where to live. And that's the way we came to Canada. We came to Canada in May 4, 1951.
What was your impression?
My impression, I'll never forget the impression, because when we came, we flew because I was already pregnant in the 8 months with my second baby, so they gave us a plane because they wouldn't risk to send me on a boat. But the planes, I guess we were 17 hours somehow in the air, and the food was good, and we ate, and we brought up everything back. It was horrible, and I couldn't even attend to my kid. He was crying because I couldn't even diaper him. But the Suharas were still with us.
You still have the Suharas?
Yes, still the Suharas. So when we came from the plane, it was a sunny morning. We came early morning to Montreal, and we came out, and the people were dressed so beautiful, and everything, whatever you asked the question, they were so polite. I'll never forget this impression, the first impressions of Canada.
Did you know any English?
Well, I learned a lot of. I could understand very well English. Maybe my talking was not so great, but I could understand pretty well. So from there we took the train to Toronto, and in Toronto my mother met us already and brought us food.
That must have been a good reunion.
A very nice reunion, and the Hayas had a house at 147 Beverly that they kept for refugees. So we got one room in that house. We had a kitchen. The 4 families used the kitchen and one washroom, and each one had a room. So we had a room there, and I remember when I had my second child, the 1st of July, and he was a boy, and Dr. Kess came to do the bris. He used to tell me after he'll never forget this bris, because he's not used to come 4 people in one room and no furniture and nothing. But yet I was so happy at that time, like a lark. I didn't have to be afraid of anybody. And no matter how much my husband, he went to work, he got a job right away. I remember he made $35 a week. But it was wonderful. I used to take my kid, my 2-year-old, and the baby in the carriage and go to the Grange Park. And I didn't have nothing, and I didn't need nothing. I was free, and whatever I could.
You remember feeling that way?
Oh, yeah, I'll never forget it. I tell it to my children. They have now so much more, and yet I was much happier then. I had no mortgages, I had no debt, I had nothing, and I didn't need nothing.
Did people understand what you had gone through? Did people here, like Jewish people and Canadian non-Jewish people?
I don't know. It's impossible to understand. If I wouldn't relive what I did, I wouldn't understand either. It's impossible to imagine what people can do to another people for nothing, for just being what you are, just Jewish or whatever. But how they used to kill babies with to put people in ghetto, just liquidate, shoot them like dogs. It's impossible to relive that kind of fear, that when you stay here and you know that if I'm on the other side of the fence and I'm not Jewish, I would live. And just because I'm Jewish and I am in ghetto, I have to die soon. It's impossible to understand.
Do you think about this quite often?
I think a lot. That's why I think a lot, and I'm happy with what I have, because I'll never forget. As long as I'm free, I have peace of mind. I'm not afraid that somebody will see me and report me to the Germans that they could kill me. I'll never forget that. I said then that even if I have to live in a bad house, not to be afraid for anybody. It's wonderful.
Do you dream about this?
Huh?
Do you have nightmares?
Well, I used to have a lot of nightmares.
What type of thing would? What type?
I still have plenty problems with I know my obsessions for being a lot of times hungry for food and for they remained in my conscience, my fear, the fear that I relieved. It's a terrible thing.
What type of thing gives you nightmares
Huh?
today? What type of thing gives you nightmares today?
Well, I still, when I start thinking about my all my girlfriends, I don't remember them more than 10, like they would be now big people, but yet I see them like we were sitting on the steps. They were, 10, 12 years when they perished.
You think of them,
Nothing left.
and you
I
said
think
to
of them
me,
a lot. I think about my grandparents
Yeah.
that had to die like that. And that we had in Dokshitz, in my father's town, my father was one of 7 brothers. So he and one more brother survived in Russia. 3 children were in Russia, so 1 survived. And all of them, and they had all children, and they all died for what? For nothing, just for being Jewish.
you said another thing that bothers you is when you hear, like a man like Zundel,
Yeah.
when they say that there wasn't.
That's right.
That bothers you
That
too.
bothers me a lot too. And that's now when still the survivors are still here. I mean, the generation, we're still here, that we know the story that it happened to us. And he has a nerve in this time to come and say that nothing like that had happened.
Tell me, did what happened to you, did it influence the way you feel about being Jewish?
I don't know, sometimes I think that, I used to think a lot of times that, I don't know, that being Jewish is maybe, a lot of times I wished I wasn't Jewish. But now that we're here, I think when so many of us perished, I think that I should do something to see that the Jewish nation still is around.
You have 5 sons and a daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, and you were saying maybe it's a good thing that you did come to Canada.
That's right. When my parents were in the States, we were trying to come to the States after, but I guess we couldn't somehow. But then when we came to, after about 4 or 5 years, we could already come, but then we decided we don't want it because we like Canada good enough, and like you say, with my 5 sons, maybe we're better off here.
Because they would have to go to the army.
That's right.
Yeah. What do you think about human beings
Huh?
after such an experience?
I don't know what to think. I just don't know what to think. I still don't trust.
You don't trust. Yeah.
I still don't trust because if something like that could happen, I don't know. I just want to make sure that we'll never forget that.
Yeah, and that's
just
why.
me, that my children and my grandchildren. And I think the whole world should learn something.
So your children know about these. You told your children
They
about.
know now. I had problems telling my children, I guess, a long time. Like she says, my father told them in the beginning.
Why was it that you didn't?
It's hard to talk about it. It's
It
just
takes
first of all,
something.
when they were small, you don't want to tell them that such things can happen when they were small.
You didn't want to scare your children.
That's right.
And then, of course, you suffer too when you talk about
That's
it.
right. No matter how many times I tell the story, I still relive it.
But yet you're telling the story. I guess you're hoping that by telling the story.
That's right. I wanted that people should know what happened and should do something like that should never happen to anybody.
There's something to learn
That's
about how to behave. Is
yeah,
that right?
Yeah.
Because you've experienced both kinds of people.
That's right.
The people who did hide you,
Yeah.
how are they doing now? I understand you're in touch with them.
That's right. The people that the mother passed away already, but we're in touch with the daughters. We send them packages. We have been doing it for a long time, since the 70s, since we found, because they moved. They moved to another city. They're now in Minsk. They're not on the farm anymore. So always, it was very hard before to send to Russia, but we tried the best. And now it's easier. We send them all the time. We send them food. We send them clothes. And I'm happy to see on the pictures that they wear the clothes that I sent them. And in '89, I had a troubled foot. I couldn't go. But my husband went, and two of my sons and a daughter-in-law, they went to Minsk to visit them.
In the
And of
same
course-
house?
Huh?
No, they weren't
that
in the
house.
same house
They're
anymore.
not in the same house.
Uh-huh.
To visit them, and of course they brought them lots of things again. And I still keep sending things to them. And now I send them invitations. Maybe the Wanda and her daughter might come here
Really?
to visit us.
One of the daughters.
Huh? One of the daughters and her daughter.
And her daughter.
Yeah. We're waiting. She should come. I think she's coming.
Was this the younger daughter?
No, the older daughter.
Mhm.
The younger daughter has diabetes. She's a sick person now.
What do you think is the message of the Holocaust?
I don't know. The message of to me, I think, is that you always have to be on guard. That I'm afraid now when I hear all this, the Nazis coming back up, and the ones that shape their heads. What are they called? Anyway, that advocate racism and Nazism. I think I shudder. I'm afraid when I hear all those things. You know, a country is good when it's free, but I think when it's too free to let them do whatever they can and whatever they want and paint swastikas, and I think it's terrible. Because when you leave it unchecked, it just goes like wildfire sometimes. You don't know when it ends.
Why do you think you survived?
Huh? I don't know. I'm sure I wasn't better. I don't know why I survived. I don't know, call it fate or whatever. I don't know why I should survive, and all my girlfriends should lie dead.
And your whole family did survive?
Well, my immediate family,
Your
yes.
immediate family,
Yeah,
not the
my
grandparents,
Not the
though.
grandparents also. They were part of our family since I remember. They were just living with us all the time.
What do you hope your children and your grandchildren will take out of watching this tape? What do you think it will mean for them?
Well, I think it should mean to them what I would like to mean, that they should never forget what that thing happened, and they should always also be on guard. And they should help fight it wherever it is, wherever they encounter it. They should never forget.
How many grandchildren do you have now?
I have blessed them now, 17 grandchildren.
17.
Yeah,
That's quite a big group.
Yeah, I had the 2-week-old just joined us. The 17th was born 2 weeks ago.
You have a little 2-week-old.
Yeah.
And the oldest?
The oldest is 14.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. This is Celina Anishkevich. She's the lady that with her family was hid us for the first crucial winter when it was very important, where we had nowhere to turn. And they gave us food and shelter, even though she was very poor herself. She lived with her 2 daughters. One was 18 and one was 15. They didn't have themselves too much what to eat, but yet they gave us whatever they had.
What was the area called that she lived in?
She lived in Zosino. It was called Zosino, and that was near Myadzil. Between Myadzil and Dunilowicz. It's about 15 kilometers from our shtetl Dunilowicz. So this is a picture of me and my friends, almost one of the first pictures after the Holocaust. Up to that time, we didn't have any pictures from ourselves. I am here in the right below the picture, and these are all my friends from school. That was in 1946.
Are they Jewish?
Yeah, they're all Jewish.
Did they also survive like you did?
Yeah, because this was already after. Oh, I don't know exactly how everyone survived. A couple of them were like me. The rest maybe they were in Russia, I'm not sure. But when we come to that was from my school where we attended in the displaced persons camps. This is me and my brother in 1947. When we were in Bad Reichenhall, in the displaced persons camp. He lives now in Valley Stream, New York. He's a dentist, and he has a wife and 3 children and 1 grandchild. His name is Leo Slavin, Dr. Leo Slavin. He's a dentist. This is a picture for my wedding in 1948. From left to right, that's my father, Yirmiyahu Slavin. He was born in 1904. And then below is my mother, Sonia Slavin. She was also born in 1904. She is still alive, but my father unfortunately already passed away. And then it's myself as a bride, and my husband as a bridegroom, and my husband's mother, who was born in... my husband's mother, her name was Ita Jesin, and she was born in 1880, and she passed away in 1948. And she was in the partisans too. She survived. And then it's my husband's uncle, Pinchas. He was also a survivor, but he passed away in 1972. It was Pinchas Berman. And then it's, going back, it's our cousin, Motke Gotkin. He was also a survivor, but he passed away too. And then it's my brother, Leo Slavin. This is one of my first pictures in Canada. From left to right, it's myself and my older son, Paul, which was 2 years old, and my husband, and my mother, Sonia Slavin, with the infant that was born already in Canada. He's here a couple of weeks old, Aaron, Dr. Aaron Jesin. He's now a doctor and a Moel himself. These are my parents, Jeremiah Slavin and Sonia Slavin. At their 50th anniversary in 1978, we donated a bed to Shaarei Tzedek Hospital, and they are holding the plaque. We made a little party for them. They didn't want no big parties, just the family. So we made just a small family party, if it could be small from our family. This is the monument from our common grave in the shtetl Dunilowicz, from all the victims of what the Nazis killed. And when my husband visited the shtetl in 1989 with 2 sons and my daughter-in-law, and here is also a cousin of his from Minsk, and they visited the monument. The monument was put on in the 60s by Shepsel Ruderman. He was in Russia, and he didn't spare any effort. We sent some money from America too, and he put this monument on. We didn't take the bigger picture, and the bigger picture, I could read just one more with my pictures. Yeah, I see. It says on the monument that here are lying 829 Jews that were slaughtered by the Nazis in November 1942. It's also written in Yiddish, and I think in Russian underneath. Yeah. This picture is also from the trip that my husband made to Russia in 1989, when he visited the daughters of Celina Anishkevich, Wanda and Basia, and they're here on the picture, and that's my younger son, Jerry Jesin. And Wanda has already a big family. She has a husband and 2 children and 2 grandchildren. But here in the picture it's just Wanda and her sister Molesha. This is my husband and myself in 1980 when he was honoree from his Yorkdale Large Bnei Brit for the State of Israel bands. This is our family picture taken in 1991 at the Hanukkah party. We decided this time to make the Hanukkah party in Beit Emet, and they allowed us the youth room, and we all came there, and we brought music, and we had a great party, and we took the annual family picture. And to the left, that's my oldest son Paul and his wife Evie, and the 3 sons, Yaakov, Moshe, and Tzvi. And then it's Karen and Jerry, Jesin, with Daniela. And then it's Eddie, Jesin, and Lisa. And then it's myself, and Norman, Jesin, and Edie, my son Norman, the son number 3, and Edie, and the 3 children, Adam, Shana, and Jeremy. And then there's our son Aaron Jesin, he's son number 2. Is Aaron and Sharon, and there's 6 children, Ahuva, Meital, Eliza, Yechesku, Rafi, and Shlomo. And on the line sitting is my daughter Elaine and the husband Danny, and the 3 children, Rachel, Jeremy, and Benji. And did I miss anybody? I guess they're all Aaron and Paul and Norman and Jerry and Eddie and Elaine. Yeah, and then, Bubi, my mother, Mrs. Olya Slavi, holding the youngest baby. And since then we have another addition, Joel Jesin, born to my youngest son, Dr. Eddie Jesin, and Lisa.